Have you heard about the younger Wright sibling? You know, the Wright brothers, Wilbur and Orville Wright, who are credited with the first airplane flight? Well, there's a younger sibling who's often forgotten about, Catherine Wright. And in 1909, she became one of the first females to fly. Why? Because her brothers wanted to make the point that even young ladies could travel through the air as easily as in motor cars. Why haven't we heard this story? And why, in 2021, are there only 7% of pilots who are female? There are many theories and opinions as to what are holding women back from flying. Some speculate it's the cost to learn, but men pay the same amount. Some say it's schedules or lifestyle, but female flight attendants have similar schedules. So is it discrimination? Maybe. Or perhaps it's lack of good role models. When I was a little girl, I wanted to be a ballerina with my pink tutu, and I wanted everyone to call me Pinky. That is, until I watched a helicopter land at my school in the 2nd grade, and I was hooked. I just wanted to be up there, and nothing was gonna stop me. Not even when my high school guidance counselor laughed at me when I told him I wanted to be a pilot. I went off to flight school, afraid I wasn't smart enough. I was dyslexic with numbers, and I wasn't great in math or science. But thankfully, my dreams were stronger than my fears. And as it turns out, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to be a pilot. In the US, there are 664,565 pilots. There are 52,740 pilots who are female. There are 100,000 pilots with a commercial pilot's license. That just means they get paid to fly, doing Grand Canyon tours, dropping skydivers, or towing banners. But only 7,000 pilots identify as female. That's 7%. That's crazy. Put 100 pilots in a room and count out 7. There are 25% of male pilots with an ATP license. ATP means Airline Transport Pilot. It's the highest license obtainable, and these are the pilots qualified to fly for the airlines or in business aviation. I am one of only 4.5% of female pilots with an ATP license. But the real kicker is that only 1% of these females sit in the left seat flying as captain. One day I really started to look at this problem of why there are so few female pilots. And as I thought about this problem, it occurred to me that I was just looking at it all wrong. Instead, I needed to flip it upside down and start asking what it was that made the 7% of pilots successful. I wanted to find the secret sauce, because if I could find it, then I could share that with others, specifically my 2 daughters, and I could help them be successful at achieving their dreams. So I set out to interview 50 female pilots. In the spring of 2020, when most of the world was in quarantine, I was in my basement office calling pilots I didn't know and asking some pretty personal questions. And I discovered the secret sauce. There are 3 traits that all of these pilots have in common. 1, they have confidence. 2, they face their fears. 3, they have support systems. The definition of confidence is having trust in one's ability. When I asked these pilots where they thought their confidence came from, they certainly didn't think they were born with it. But it developed throughout the years by playing sports, having experience, or even failure. As it turns out, failure is a huge motivator to build confidence on. And this blew my mind, because we are not raised to view failure as a positive thing. Fake it till you make it was also another common answer. This is CJ. She's a first officer for United Airlines. She's based in Guam, and she flies the South Pacific routes to places I can't even pronounce. But she's also flown seaplanes in the Caribbean, skydivers in Dubai, and intelligence surveillance, and recon missions in Afghanistan and West Africa. She's pretty cool. When I asked CJ where her confidence comes from, she replied, "I fake it. I am scared of most of the things I do, but I am more afraid of missing out on the next adventure." These women have had to work hard and be better than their male counterparts. They know their airplane systems 3 levels deep, and they study twice as hard to have the confidence necessary to command the aircraft. This is Katrina. She's an international captain on a Gulfstream 650. She's also the assistant chief pilot at her Fortune 500 flight department. Katrina's motto is know yourself, what you want, what you stand for, and don't be afraid to go after it. This is a perfect example of what confidence looks like. There's an underlying fear of being a female in a male-dominated industry. Why? Because we still face harassment, workplace discrimination, and wage inequality. One of the scariest moments of my career was having to tell my chief pilot I was pregnant. My husband's at work getting high fives, and I'm afraid I'm gonna get fired. There's a stigma attached that if you make it in a man's world, you better not get pregnant and quit. Time and time again during these interviews, I heard stories of the adversity that these pilots faced. Whether it was someone saying girls can't fly, or they weren't allowed to fly because they were pregnant. Sometimes it was dealing with a handsy examiner or an inappropriate flight instructor. Or the fear was more internal, like thinking they didn't have the correct brain for aviation. Or they weren't taken seriously by their peers. This is Susie. She's a 5-foot-tall Puerto Rican who flies a KC-135. But she went to the Air Force Academy to become a lawyer. And it's also where she met her now husband, who is in training to be a pilot. When Susie soloed an airplane, she knew she could spend the rest of her life flying. When she told her boyfriend this, he said, "If you become a pilot, then we're never gonna see each other." Guess what Susie told him? She said, "Well, then you better get another job." Susie's my hero. I am so glad that these women did not let fear change the course of their dreams. Because 100% of the women I interviewed were successful because they didn't quit, no matter what. Having a support system is also a major key to success, whether it's a friend, parent, commander, or roommate. But having people around you who say yes instead of no is what helped these women earn their wings. 78% of pilots said they had a mentor, and 69% of pilots said they had a father figure who played an influential role in them becoming a pilot. My favorite story is about Margaret's dad. When Margaret was 16 years old, she was dating a guy a couple years older than her. You know where this is going, right? Margaret's dad wasn't too fond of the boyfriend, so he went to the airport and got her a gift card for 20 glider flights. He thought that if she was busy with a new hobby, it would give her less time to spend with the boyfriend, and it worked. Margaret retired from Delta Airlines last year. So guys, dads, brothers, uncles, what you say and do with our daughters will matter so much to what they become. Give that nudge towards the flight line and the flight deck. Let them know you have an unwavering belief in their abilities, because apparently you were very influential in shaping futures. When faced with fear, self-doubt, or discrimination, these lady aviators kept taking off, but they didn't do it alone. They had communities, support systems, and mentors to encourage and cheer them on. Being a pilot takes a lot of hard work and tenacity. But as Amelia Earhart once said, everyone has oceans to fly if they have the heart to do it. Is it reckless? Maybe, but what do dreams know of boundaries? So how do we get our daughters to shoot for the moon? Well, if you're a pilot and someone asks you what you do for a living, don't just say you work out at the airport. Stand up tall and proudly say, I'm a pilot. To increase the percentage from 7 to even 50% requires us to start showing our daughters these role models. But we need more role models in the spotlight. And this happens in social media and in the movies. We need a Top Gun sequel with female pilots. And we need more children's books with girls flying airplanes. Air shows are also a spectacular place to show young girls a fascinating world of aviation. And we need more women in the boardrooms and the C-suite where policies are being made. Without better paid family leave, schedule flexibility, and other support, these women who have a high amount invested in their training and careers are having to make the difficult decisions to stay home to become primary caregivers. Our systems are broken. And companies are missing out on true diversity and inclusivity with this section of employees. In 2009, I was flying a $25 million business jet. I had just finished pre-flighting, and I went inside to use a bathroom and wait on our passenger. On my way back outside, there were a group of male pilots that I had to walk around, and I heard one of them say, "Since when did they start letting females in the cockpit?" I was shocked. I didn't know what to say. I didn't say anything. About 2 hours later, halfway to Chicago, flying 8 miles above the earth, I finally thought of my reply. Since when? Since 1909, actually. That's when Catherine first flew with Wilbur, and I think she would have made an excellent pilot. She had more confidence than her brothers, always encouraging them to close the deal and to keep trying after every failed attempt. She even learned French when the trio traveled to Europe to show off their flying machine. She obviously didn't let fear stand in her way, and she had brothers who supported her. The pilots I interviewed have inspired me to share their stories. They have worked hard and fought many battles to earn their home in the skies. And I want our daughters to know that they could be pilots or anything else they dream of. But it's more than just saying, you could be whatever you want to be. We need to teach them how to walk with confidence, how to face their fears, and have people around them who support their dreams and say yes. I don't think my guidance counselor laughed at me because he thought my dreams were funny. He laughed because a young girl in a town full of cowboys and ranchers was in his office dreaming of far away horizons. He laughed because he was shocked it came out of my mouth. If your dreams don't shock people, they're not big enough.